أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لقد ابتغوا الفتنة من قبل وقلبوا لك الأمور حتى جاء الحق وظهر أمر الله وهم كارهون ومنهم من يقول ائذني ولا تفتني ألا في الفتنة سقطوا وإن جهنم لمحيطة بالكافرين إن تصبك حسنة تسؤهم وإن تصبك مصيبة يقولوا قد أخذنا أمرنا من قبل ويتولوا وهم فرحون قل لن يصيبنا إلا ما كتب الله لنا هو مولانا وعلى الله فليتوكل المؤمنون صدق الله العظيم. In verse 47, yesterday what we read and discussed, there Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exposes the reality of the munafiqun and hypocrites when they partake in communal affairs. Over here, speaking of the expedition of Tabuk, that if they were to come with you, if they were to associate with you, if they were with you, then they would just cause fitna, fasad, evil, problems amongst your ranks. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this isn't something which is specific to now, in the 9th year of Hijrah. That 9 years after Hijrah Tabuk, this is not the first time. In fact, this has been their way. لَقَدْ ابْتَغَوُا الْفِتْنَةَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. From before, this was the desire of the munafiq and the hypocrite, causing fitna, causing problems, causing discord. When Nabi ﷺ comes to Medina Munawwara, brings the da'wah of Islam, many had obviously already accepted, hence that's why Nabi ﷺ went there. Those that did not have, how did the group of munafiqun become their group of munafiqun? When a certain group of mushrikun, a certain group of polytheists, when they saw that this is not something that they can stop. The da'wah of Islam has spread, it's found roots in the hearts of the people of Medina. The muhajirun, they're coming, they're assisting. The likes of Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul, famous munafiq, and the others, once they saw that this isn't something they can externally stop, so they said that perhaps we should try a different tactic, that internally we act as if we're with them, and then cause problems within. Then cause problems within their ranks. So from that time, from the very beginning, they've been doing that. But the Quran Karim says, وَقَلَّبُوا لَكَ الْأُمُورِ. That they, قَلَّبَ literally means to turn things. Turn up and down, meaning they try all kinds of ways. Not just one method. Sometimes it's through one way, sometimes they may cause questions as far as your aqidah is concerned, existential questions they'll bring up. Sometimes it may be about your a'mal, sometimes about the social life of the believers, why this, why that, or that when there is any difficulty that comes, they may say that, oh, that if it wasn't for your iman, if you had adopted other ways, then this might have been easy. Whatever way, whatever works for them in order to cause and to turn you away from your way, then they will adopt those means. وَقَلَّبُوا لَكَ الْأُمُورِ. But the reality was, حَتَّى جَاءَ الْحَقِّ وَظَهَرَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ. Badr occurred, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave victory, one victory after the other, one way or the other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave nusrah and assistance to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to His Nabi, to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and وَظَهَرَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ. Eventually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command, His deen, this was what was ghalib and this was what was dominant. وَهُمْ كَارِهُونَ. And they disliked this. The success of the believers, the success of Islam and Muslims is very difficult upon the munafiq, obviously, as he is a disbeliever. A specific issue, a specific case of fitna, and there's a principle behind this as well. Ulama of Tafseer write in the sabab al-nuzul. Sabab al-nuzul means the means of revelation, or the reason of revelation. Yani these type of issues occurred. So one specific case they write that there was a man by the name of Jad bin Qais. He was also a munafiq. That when he came to seek permission, as we said, the munafiqun sought permission to not go out with the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Tabuk. So the excuse he brings is that if I go, now this Tabuk is towards the Roman Empire. It's towards the Romans. So he said that if I go for this jihad, I'm going to fall into fitna because I'm very attracted to women. Okay? Just if I see the Roman women, I'm just going to fall into fitna. Okay, so this was his excuse. He's acting his piety. He's so pious. So if I go for a jihad, then I'll see these Roman women, and I'm going to fall into fitna. Hence, give me permission, and I won't go for jihad. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولِ إِذَنْ لِي وَلَا تَفْتِنِي. The Quran al-Kareem gives a principle. أَلَا فِي الْفِتْنَةِ سَقَطُوا. That you've already fallen into a fitna. What is that? That a conclusive, definitive command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you right now is to engage in this and to go out in this campaign. So that's the definitive. This is what definitely needs to be done. This is conclusive. This is what you're being asked for. What you're speaking of is something which is what we call mawhum. That it's possible. This may happen, it may not happen. You may fall into fitna. As we know what happened to Tabuk, by the time the Muslim army reached, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alqa ar-ru'ba fi qulubihim. Allah ta'ala cast the awe of the Muslimun, and the battle did not even ensue. The Roman army did not engage with the Muslim army. So what you're speaking of is a potential, possible issue. Not fulfilling a definitive command for a possible thing, this in itself is fitna, the Quran says. You've already fallen into fitna. أَلَا فِي الْفِتْنَةِ سَقَطُوا. Something possibly, potentially may occur. You're giving preference to that versus something which needs to be done, is already definitive. That is what is being asked from you right now. So, to not do what is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the moment, which is a definitive, and to give preference to something potential, possible, it may not occur, this is not the approach of the believer. أَلَا فِي الْفِتْنَةِ سَقَطُوا وَإِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ لَمُحِيطَةٌ بِالْكَافِرِينَ. That either the means of going into Jahannam have surrounded these people, meaning they've done everything which makes a person rightful to go to Jahannam. Or that at the Day of Judgment, once they are in Jahannam, then it will be all around them, meaning there's no escape. There will be no escape from Jahannam. إِن تُصِبْكَ حَسَنَةٌ تَسُمْ, as we said. The quality of the munafiq is, if good comes to you, whichever form, whether it's victory, whether it's other dunyawi, worldly, mundane things, or ukhrawi things, whichever way. If any good comes to you, they dislike it. And if any difficulty comes on you, then you should see their rhetoric, their dialogue changes. What do they say? قَدْ أَخَذْنَا أَمْرَنَا مِنْ قَبْلِ. See, we told you so. You know how people say, I told you so. So that's how the munafiq acts. That in this world, obviously, there is ups and downs. Nor does it say that every Muslim will win every single battle. That's not necessary. There will be these type of afflictions that will also come. Sometimes drought may come. Sometimes natural disasters may come. Living in this world, the Muslim is not above natural law. Those things will occur. Right? Part of this is defeat, part of this is victory. So now, how does the believer respond? That will come in the next ayah. But the munafiq, he says this. قَدْ أَخَذْنَا مَا مِنْ قَبْلِ. Oh, that's exactly why we didn't go out. That's what they say. That's why we didn't engage. وَيَتَوَلَّوْا وَهُمْ فَرِحُونَ. They turn away from you, O Rasul of Allah, from the Muslim, and they're very happy about what they've done. How does the believer answer and respond? قُلْ لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. After taking all measures, doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to do, after that it's complete tawakkul upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trusting upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tafweed ila Allah. Handing over your affair to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. Only that which Allah has written for us, this is what will afflict us. This is the right way of tawakkul. That after doing what you're asked to do, taking whatever measures and asbab and means necessary, then what do we say? لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. Whatever Allah has written for us, then that is what will come to us. هُوَ مَوْلَانَا. He is our guardian. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our patron, our guardian. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. It is only upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the believers should have trust. Tawakkul, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will only come if a person has the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, more specifically, means tawheed, what we say, tawheedul af'al, tawheed fi'li. لا فاعل إلا الله. That no one does except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing happens in this world except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. The Rasul of Allah is addressed in the Quran that when you cast and when you shoot and when you do anything, it's not you, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who does for you. Once this yaqeen and conviction is there, that only Allah ta'ala does. That we do what we do from our side, but the true doing is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the basis. If the base of that tawheed is called tawheed fi'li. Tawheed fi'li in Arabic means doing, in action. That nothing happened, no one can do except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah ta'ala does everything. If that yaqeen is not there, then there's no tawakkul. Then you can't have tawakkul, then you can't have trust at all. Only if you have this level of aqidah, that in order to have actual tawakkul, then this is the minimal level. Tawheed fi'li is the minimal for being able to have any real form of trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then after that, having yaqeen in the sifat of Allah ta'ala, the qualities of Allah. Which qualities specifically? That number one, Allah is qadir. That Allah has capability, capacity, power to do anything and everything. Qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Having yaqeen in this quality of Allah ta'ala. Having yaqeen that Allah is shafiq, that Allah is kind, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants what is for you. An example would be tawakkul. Tawakkul in Arabic comes from the root letters as waw, kaf, and lam, wakala. Okay, in English you can say perhaps agency. In Arabic, they call a lawyer a wakil. Why? Why do they call it wakil? You've entrusted your case to him. Right? So why do you get a lawyer? Why does a person get a lawyer? Because you see that he knows what to say, what not to say. He has knowledge of the system. I don't have the knowledge system. I trust that he will be my representative and do what is best for me. Right? At least theoretically, that's why a person, now I'm saying theoretically, practically you need it because the system is corrupt. Okay. Besides that aspect, theoretically, why do you have an agent? Why do you have someone who does something for you? Because you think that they have something that you may not have, or that you've handed your affair to them, you trust them enough, etc. In that light, you can understand tawakkul. That Allah Ta'ala knows and I do not know. Allah has the capacity, capability, I don't have the capacity, capability. And I trust that whatever happens from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will determine what is best for me. Once a person has yaqeen in these sifat, and then the aqidah of tawheed fi'li, what we said, then the person can have tawakkul. Then there's something that tawakkul can be based upon. If you don't have the foundation of this tawheed and yaqeen in the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there is no tawakkul and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you need to have the foundation. And that's a lifetime's worth of effort, work. A person reminds himself that you have to train yourself. You train your mind, you train yourself always, and what you see around you, you link it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This thing happened to me, Allah ta'ala willed for it. This thing occurred in this world, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed for. When a person continuously trains his mind like this, then he'll start seeing some, we call it thamara, some fruits of this, tawakkul will also come. Then he will entrust his affairs in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The discussion of tawakkul is lengthy, many angles, many things to discuss. Some other time, inshallah. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallah bihamdi. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka. Wa alaikum assalam.